He's on the Cairns Regional Council. His sights set, one day maybe, on higher office. He's also young, a family man, a local, with views on most of the issues facing far north Queensland, the rest of the state and the nation. Brett Olds needs no introduction. This week with Brett Olds on Cairns FM 89.1.
Well, I read the preamble, and I can't quote it now, but a couple of weeks ago, because I was going to have you on last week, but I couldn't do my show last week. That's why it was a repeat for all listeners. I apologise. But the preamble of the inquiry, it doesn't give you the why, because no matter what you do in life, no matter what challenge is coming up or what project you're planning, there has to be a why. Like why? And all I can tell is maybe there's just been a few years since the Act's been looked at, and they're like, oh, let's just have another look at it, or other states are doing it. But I can't find out what is the intent of why do they want to water it down. Especially now, those meetings like yesterday, they're talking the right way, saying, yeah, we have to bring something in behind it. But right now, like Cairns Regional Council, we spend just over $3 million a year in the CBD for this kind of stuff. So, and we help fund different programs with the police and other social service groups. We give grants on top of that. There's a Safe Night precinct. I think there's 12 Safe Night precincts all throughout Queensland, and they've got a private boards and everything else, and they get funding from the state government, and usually they get $500,000 a year. The state government now said, oh no, we're going to give you $500,000 between the 12 of you. Well, that's not going to have a positive income. That's for intoxicated people leaving nightclubs. So basically the state government years ago said, you guys are responsible for getting these guys drunk, you businesses. They're going to your businesses and having a great time. Then they're walking out into the CBD, into public space. Residents, tourists, as you mentioned, even the rough sleepers, everyone has a right to be in that public space, but they don't have a right to break the law, of course. But that's what they said. You have a responsibility after loading these people up with alcohol to help get them safely home. And so these Safe Night precincts are now coming saying, because I think you and I agree, the state needs to step up and needs to be more funding. The police are under-resourced, and all the social groups, so social service groups, well, most of them are underfunded, and the police are underfunded to take care of this problem. What council is afraid of, and we wrote a letter, which I'll quote a bit later. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's 4 pages long. In our submission that was put to the inquiry, it basically says that what we're worried about is if this gets decriminalised and they wash their hands of it, which because they want to look at more serious crimes or whatever else, then that's going to fall back onto local governments. So all the councils in Queensland in the remote regional areas, we're going to have to step up now. And what's it going to cost us? $6 million a year of ratepayers' money? And it's like our ratepayers are also taxpayers. They're paying this money to the state government, and it's not coming back. And so I think all the councils, on the day that we voted for it, we all agreed that, and I think there's 36 different organisations in Cairns that work in this space, that work with itinerants, that work with rough sleepers, all this kind of stuff. And there's 27 youth and youth service providers. That's anywhere from PCYC through to Yeti, etc. Some of the 36 funded organisations, Mission Australia, Anglicare, the Benevolent Society, Rosie's, the food service. Cairns has a lot of people trying to help in this space. And I just think this is going to put more pressure on all those groups and more pressure on council if the state doesn't step up. So is there a way, anything in your meetings yesterday, did you hear the state saying, hey, yeah, look, we are going to step up and come in behind it with something else? Because if they're going to change it and wash their hands of it, that's our fear, I guess. That's what the community is going to have to put up with.
Look, a couple of things there. Brett Moller did bring up the reduction in funding for the Safe Night precincts, which is incredible.
A huge reduction.
Now, that actually, when he said exactly the same figures, exact same thing you just said, and the chair was particularly concerned about that. They hadn't heard that yet through their meetings. So they were interested in, wait, hang on a second, what funding's been cut? Where has this gone? Yeah. Because obviously from $500,000 per Safe Night precinct, I think it was 15 or something, to $500,000 to split between 15. So you're ending up with, less than 40,000
It's nothing.
Each.
It's tokenism.
It's crazy. So I've got to say, I was there yesterday. Brett Moller brought that up, and I see the chair was particularly concerned, and I think they'll look into that. The other thing is I can tell you the why. So the why is this. I'm a member of the Queensland Law Society as well. Now, years ago, there was a Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, and ever since then, you've got these organisations, especially the Queensland Law Society, trying to reduce really Indigenous deaths in custody, and as a result, basically Indigenous people in custody.
In the first place.
Now, recently there was another report done, and it was Hear Her Voice. It was a Women's Safety and Justice Task Force, that was put together by Shannon Fentiman, the Attorney General. It was about the first report was about domestic violence and women and what's happening in that space and where have they got to go and that sort of thing. The second report, which they just released a few weeks ago, was looking at women in custody, and they've looked at women in custody. And apparently, I'm not sure what the actual statistic is, but it's a high statistic of particularly Indigenous female women that are being charged with these public urination, public offences. So
and
that's
begging
the why.
Like, yeah.
That's where this has come from. It's being driven down in Brisbane by the Law Society, really just trying to... It comes back to that, I guess, equality issue. So that's where it comes from. That's the why.
So, okay, yeah. Well, they should have put that. They should have put that in their preamble, though. Like, they should. You've got to be transparent when you're going to change something in a big way, especially like this.
Yeah.
And you've got communities that have been screaming out for years. We do, as a council, every 4 years we do an Our Cairns survey.
Yep.
So in 2016 we did one. In 2020 we did one. So straight after the election, find out, we'll gauge what the community is. We get over 6,000. I think we got over 8,000 respondents, which you've got 170,000 people living here. It's actually a really big response for any survey you do. And both surveys came back when you asked what the issues are. People are concerned with public safety and with crime. So, again, when local councils or any government, we live in a Westminster system, like the government in Australia, which is federal, state or local government, we're there to serve the community. And when you hear an overwhelmingly back from the community, they want you to go harder here. And like you said, equality to me is one rule for everyone, and otherwise anything else is inequality. And I guess sometimes you can say, well, there's a good reason that someone gets treated especially, but when it comes to crime, I think and I've tried to look. I've been flat out. I'm not as busy as you, it seems, after reading all the stuff you're involved with. But no, I'm pretty busy. But I tried to find out where they've watered down these laws, decriminalised it, or even around Australia or around the world, where it's had a positive impact and to the community. And I can't find anywhere that it's made that it's changed. It's only changed for the worse, not the better. Like Victoria only changed 2 years ago, and there's been that big pandemic and everything else, so it's too early to tell how it's gone in Victoria. So I didn't get any data out of there. But in the States, for instance, in California, they've decriminalised any theft under $750. So what's happened is thefts have gone up. People just go load up a trolley, whatever, $500, $600 worth of stuff, and it's not a criminal activity. I was talking to my mum the other night at dinner, and the Holy Sheet, which is a business, SHEET, in case it might sound like something else, but Holy Sheet down there, she went and bought some sheets, and before she paid for them, the lady had grabbed them, was holding them until the money went through. Mum hadn't even noticed it, and then after it went through, she gave them to Mum, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry for grabbing the sheets while you were paying." Mum goes, "Oh, I didn't even notice." She goes, "Oh, I get really embarrassed because the thing is, people come in here and they steal $50, $60 worth of stuff. They call the police. The police don't even come and do anything. So people right now are already doing the wrong thing. And as soon as the message, whether, I know it's not the intent to make crime go up, but this is what has happened in other areas around the world and in Australia, is when they've decriminalised or watered down laws like this, crime has gone up. Because even begging, for instance, I did read your submission, and you're a very passionate person, it made a lot of sense, and you make some good points, because you put a submission into the inquiry. One of your examples you gave the example of the guy outside Cover Girls, but was the lady begging with just the sign. And you can tell that story, then I'll tell you why I bring that story up in a second, sorry.
Yeah, look, so in my submission, this is I was actually in court last year helping Rob Pyne with his gigantic defamation case that is. I think we were in court for nearly 2 months or something last year. But so I went went upstairs into one of the magistrates' courts there, just having a look, see what's on. There was a person in there. I desensitised it. It was a man, but I tried to keep it neutral. But so this guy had been in there into court now for fourth time that
separate
year,
occasions.
for begging.
Yeah.
Now I didn't know begging was an offence. I was actually pretty shocked. I thought, wow, okay, no one likes being hassled when you're walking past, and this person was picked up out the front of Woolworths in the CBD, and as you know, there's always someone sitting out there. I hate that, because sometimes as a business owner, I'm going to drop off, the Commonwealth Bank's right next door, and I'm
that's right.
going to put 10 grand in the bank or take 10 grand out. I've got a lot of cash, and I'm going, geez, I don't
check your pockets before you leave, mate.
mate, I sort of get nervous because I think, I'm a heavily tattooed, but I'm not a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think, if someone's desperate, they're there on the side of the streets begging. So, I get a bit anxious when I do that. So I try to stay away.
Yep.
Now, if I owned Woolworths, maybe, Woolworths probably, they've got plenty of money anyway. They don't.
But the manager, you don't want that out the front of your business.
But if that was my business, I wouldn't want that out front because I know that is discouraging customers from coming in. They go, I really want to go in your store, but I don't want to. I'll go shop elsewhere because there's always people hanging out the front. So I get that issue. But anyway, back to answer your question, there was a homeless guy, 4th time in court this year. The magistrate just shook her head, looked at the prosecution and said, what do you suggest I do for this offence?
She took the circumstances into account, obviously.
Yeah. Look, he had
homeless,
one leg, was on disability pension, and was homeless in between housing. Something happened during COVID. So the prosecution said, look, Your Honour, it's just a fine, even though it's the 4th time. And the magistrate said, look, I've got discretion here. I'm going to use my discretion, and I'm not going to issue the fine because it's counterproductive, right? Why should I issue a fine to this guy that's doing it hard? If I give him a fine, he's going to do it harder.
Yep. Or
he's not going to pay. It's going to go to spare. It's going to, go somewhere else anyway. But she said, look, she apologised to the guy and said, unfortunately, you've got to pay the offender levy. I think it's $133 or something like that. She said, you got 4 of those this year. It's only $500. There's nothing else I can do. And so that was a shock to me because, I didn't really know begging was an offence at that time. And begging is now one of the offences that they are looking at
relaxing,
decriminalising. And I haven't heard anyone talking about that. So even yesterday, there wasn't a lot of talk about that. The focus is really on the public urination and the public intoxication. So I think they are separate issues, but they are interlinked.
Yeah, under the same act.
Yeah. But, so it's just one of those things where obviously I'd like to see that decriminalised because I look at it as a view and I go, well, this guy is doing it hard. I can tell you because I work in the court, I know that that prosecutor, he's getting paid. He's getting paid good money.
Yep.
Defence lawyers getting paid good money. Whether that's ATSLs or whether that's legal aid, someone's still getting paid. It's still government funded. The magistrate, the court time. The time for the police to pick this guy up 4 times in 1 year, take him to the watch house because he didn't attend court. So I'm thinking that's probably about a $20,000, $30,000 bill. And when he was searched by police, he had $7.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that there's a huge
waste of resources.
Mate, and I'm saying put 20, 30 grand in, you probably could have paid his rent for a year and got him off the streets. That's how I'm looking at it.
I get it. I get what you're saying.